Okay, here's Don Tequilas, who is known as Julio in the barn, and he is having his first ride out in the jump field, and he also popped over his first logs today. And he's a very funny horse, and what you're seeing here with the grazing, that is what he would prefer to do. If he could choose what he was going to do for his ride, it would be to graze. He is just such a funny horse. He says the slower the better, and actually just grazing is his ideal thing to do. But he was happy to move along and do his job. However, I will say he was so exhausted from this ride, which all in couldn't have been longer than 20 minutes. But he has spent the rest of the day sleeping. And Billy, my husband, just came in from doing late check, and he said he's just flat out in his paddock, just could not be bothered to get up. He's just so exhausted. So it just cracks me up. It's just a different type of strength, but it is just so funny to think like this horse was just running races like a week or two ago. He has to have a pretty good baseline fitness. Yet here we are, cantering around the field for 5 or 10 minutes, popping over some little logs, somehow has him sleeping for the rest of the day. So it's just so funny. These horses, as they come off the track, they're really so different, as they're not expected to be race horses anymore. So I finally actually put the stick on Julio. He didn't want me to do it when he first came, but he has since, settled in a lot, taken a huge breath. And so today he did not mind me putting the stick next to him. And I was pretty close. I had him at 16 2 hands. He's actually 16 2.5 hands, maybe a smidge over 16 2.5 hands. He's probably a little closer to 16 3, but I'm going to leave it at 16 2.5 hands on his official ad. And he's very big bodied, so he certainly has the feel of a very large horse. He's a 5 year old. I can't remember if I said that. He's by Speedster, and he's out of a Union Rags mare, so a well bred horse for sure. And also, obviously, just very easy on the eyes, very well put together, all the things. His hind shoes just came off the other day. I had my farrier check him. I thought his feet looked really good when he came, and my farrier agreed, thought he had probably just been done right before he came. So we left the front shoes on and took off the hinds. And we're actually getting really lucky this summer with rain. I mean, as you can see, our grass is so green. We've gotten so much rain, it's amazing. So that's really helpful for these guys as they're getting their hind shoes off and they're transitioning to being barefoot behind. The field is really nice and soft, so that's awesome. And he felt totally fine without the hind shoes on. So that was really good. So I tried to keep the warm up pretty short and sweet because Julio has been consistently very quiet and easily tired since he got here. He's actually funny because he does have a very big, goofy personality. Like he sort of like walks around like he thinks he's a rock star, which I mean he is awesome. But he made me think like, okay, like this horse might be a handful to ride, but oh my goodness, it is so the opposite. He is the most opposite of a handful to ride as you could possibly imagine. He is such a cluck and squeeze along ride. It is pretty funny. I mean, you better, if your leg isn't strong, it will be by the time you get done working with this horse because he does not want to go anywhere faster than you're going to ask him to go. And I have to remind myself, and I was reminded when I watched back this video, that sometimes on these really sort of quiet horses that have a pretty slow natural rhythm, I think I push them past it a little bit because my personal horses tend to be more forward thinking. And so that's just sort of like my baseline comfort. And so I think that I sort of pushed him out of his rhythm a little bit. I should have actually let him take the tempo down a little bit the way he wanted to, and I was overcompensating a little bit. So my apologies to Julio for that. I'll try to be better next time. So you can see that head toss he just did. That is him being wild. That's his wild side. And that is as wild as I have seen him get. And it's just very funny because, I just would like to tell him to conserve his energy. Don't do that head toss because seems to have so little energy that he doesn't need to be wasting it tossing his head around, but that's what he does when he's excited. So we didn't canter too much in our warm up because you can see I'm kicking. So I knew I had to conserve the energy. But I do have to give him so much credit. He was not spooky or reactive about anything. I'm right there. If you saw that little moment where he wanted to put his head down and I kind of didn't let him. Normally, I'm a huge fan of letting horses put their noses down and touch the jumps or whatever it is. However, we'd already walked over this log once before, and he doesn't actually want to look at the log. He wants to put his head down and graze. So that is why I did not let him put his head down, because I already know the tricks that he's up to, which is that he doesn't care about the log. He just wants to stop and eat some grass, which is all fine and well, but he needs to learn that we're not going to do that as we're, approaching whatever the thing is that we're going to walk over or trot over or canter over. So he was absolutely wonderful about ignoring all the traffic going by, which is always my personal biggest pet peeve because it freaks me out. And I've ridden some pretty reactive horses out there that can get pretty rattled by it, and I don't blame them at all. It's wildly noisy, and I think it's startling myself. So I always super appreciate the horses that are just so unbothered by it. It blows my mind how these young horses can actually just be so unbothered by it, and he certainly falls into that category. The only thing I have actually found that bothers this horse, because most things don't, he doesn't care about my hounds wandering around, coming in and out of the woods next to the ring, running, howling up the driveway after the delivery people. He doesn't care about any of that. Cars, traffic, trucks, none of that bothers him. Only thing he does not like is chickens and ducks. And we happen to have chickens and a duck. And he just finds them loud and annoying, I guess, is I think my interpretation of his behavior towards them. And now that he's been here for a week or two, he sort of, I think, accepted them. But he definitely doesn't like them. That was very cute. So I think these are the first jumps that we canter. And actually, I think for him, oh, that was so cute. Jumping out of the canter is so much easier for him right now than coming out of the trot. And that's just personal preference for horses. And of course, all horses need to learn to jump confidently out of the trot and the canter. But actually, then that was better. So he cantered the one, and then the next one he trotted better, more confidently and straighter. So it's kind of a give and take. We want him to, he has to learn both. But we want to enter with the path of least resistance. So if for him, sort of understanding the footwork comes easier out of the canter, then of course that's what we'll do more of at first. And then actually that was pretty good too. Oh yeah, and here, I got him to just a really sort of gappy distance. He was a very good boy to go to figure it out, even though it was kind of awkward. Getting a little tired, I think, which is why I thought we'd keep coming in the canter, and then it is much easier in the canter. And he was a good boy there to maintain the right lead. Like most of these guys, he finds the left lead a little easier right now, which is the total norm. And on a day like today, when we're doing our first jumps, we're out in the field for the first time, I'm certainly not worrying about the lead that we're on. I'm thinking about things like, balance and straightness and him having a confidence building experience. So I really don't care which lead he's on at the moment, but I was happy when he jumped that log, landed on the right lead, and then maintained the right lead over the next one. That was good. And also, apologies if I sound weird or weirder than normal. I've been really sick the last couple of days, and my throat has been really bothering me. That was good there, that log. I think this is his grand finale. He really did well with this line of logs along the road. Just going to in a perfectly straight line, taking steering out of it, having all the time in the world to see the next thing coming. And he holds such a nice, steady tempo the whole time. The rhythm never changes. He just keeps coming in the same 1-2. Super nice. I mean, and so straight as an arrow down that line. That was awesome. And then his real grand finale here is that he jumps this little log in the corner on the downhill actually pretty well. So super good boy. I'm really proud of him. Thought he couldn't have been better for first experience. First time out in the field and first time jumping. He was a superstar. So here's some footage of him on cross ties. We got a lot of rain yesterday and last night, so everybody was a mud ball when they came in this morning, and I knew we were going to do the video, so I gave him a bath earlier in the morning, and then of course I put him in a stall, and then he proceeded to roll really well on both sides. So when I took him out to do this ride, he was just absolutely caked in sawdust, which I suppose is easier to get off than mud, but it still took a little bit. But he's standing really well on cross ties. He's totally understanding this now. He's being a really good boy.